it was a 2-0 for SAG Den. Of course, there's been a couple of roster shakeups, a very big meta shift, and very different drafts coming out. Like, as they pointed out, Beastmaster mid coming through here for God King. Not something we've seen at all, I think, from God King, considering we've covered some of his games from 2018, 2019. So this is something fresh and spicy from the patch. But as mentioned, with the Ags change for the Beastmaster, there's a lot of things you can kind of see coming out. We'll see if he does hit that Ags timing, if it's prioritized here for God King, and if he will kind of aim for that solo Roche with a smoke down the line.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that the other day, and I thought this has to be one of the most ridiculous things I've seen in the new patch thus far. But the Wild Axes already are kind of broken with the Aghanim Scepter with no cooldown, but adding the bonus damage on top just makes it that much better, and I really can't wait to see what D-Stones intends to do with this Beastmaster this game. Whether he will just go for the Aghanim's Rush and try to make that work. Apart from that, though, John, I might add, I'm very, very happy to see that Beastmaster actually has something to do other than pushing towers now. So it feels like the Necromonicon being available all the time meant that you only just went for the one build, but at least now you have some alternatives with this hero. Feels amazing.
Yeah, more options for aggression. Again, just focusing on those Wild Axes leads to more potential in fights in terms of damage output beyond just push. Of course, that does mean his push potential is just reliant on the boars, so you lose some of that impact on the objectives, but the meta has shifted towards this fight-oriented kind of meta anyway. We see a lot of aggression over those bounty runes early on. You're already seeing a bit of a clump up here from both sides as well, and should be pretty strong from both sides if they want to force the issue. They have really good control on both sides, really good damage at their level 1, so could be a pretty interesting skirmish if they do force the issue out here.
Yeah, it's another thing I love about this new patch is the fact that everyone's just going for a 5v5 in the mid lane before the game even starts. Gets me very, very excited indeed, and I do wonder whether either team is going to commit to this 5v5, but we'll find out very soon in just about 20 seconds. As they are positioning right now, SAG, by their tier 1 tower, I'd say the Viper is quite scary as well at that level 1 mark for these 5v5s. Still, RNG moving forward are going to throw out the Astral Spirit, and of course that's another very scary thing to deal with. The Super does bring out the briefcase, but it's not going to lead to much. Looks like it was a 3-for-1 trade on those bounties. So definitely a bit of a better start for RNG, but not all too bad for SAG.
Yeah, you don't lose out on too much. You do have to worry about just having that additional gold for your mid lane matchup there. So Beastmaster, D-Stone should be able to save up for that initial bottle a bit faster. XCJ is trying to poke out Felix though, and it's just a bit of a back and forth with the supports there.
Yeah, I mean, after the Scatter Blast comes out, the Fire Spirit's obviously going to give XCJ a bit of an advantage here as they stick around in the mid lane. They're not giving up yet, but Felix Schauber, he wants to keep going. He has another Scatter Blast up, but he's not quite close enough to get the bonus damage, and XCJ, he'll just salve up and stick by the tier 1. Still, having a look down at the bot lane. Son Goku, there along with his line, of course, up against God King and Super. Do you feel like God King will struggle this lane, or should he be just fine on the jug?
It should be a lane that you hold steady. Like, it's still a Tidehunter you're up against. You do have some ways to play around it with your spin, but there's a long cooldown on that, so you're going to have to watch your spacing a bit, some pressure on your support to enable you to get that farm, so we'll see if they can kind of get that zoning out. Have to watch for the spikes on the Tide as well. You see early levels of Gush being prioritized sometimes. That can lead to some early aggression and some deep dives in if you're not careful.
Certainly, and of course the last lane we haven't really mentioned is the top lane where IDC going to be up against Flyfly. And you have both supports there as well. Felix Schauber and XCJ hanging out by the small camp. Now this lane seems quite interesting as well, right? Because you've, in fact, hold that thought, because mid lane. It's a very close call there for our Beastmaster. 7E getting very aggressive on the Viper. Almost taking out D-Stones, but not quite enough. Still, speaking of this lane, John, it does seem rather difficult for the Beastmaster considering you are up against the Viper. And nobody really beats Viper.
No, no one does, and you've got that range disadvantage in this matchup, so 7E can sit back, spam the poison attack, stack them up in D-Stones. And D-Stones, he has the access to play with, sure, But the uptime on the harassment of 7E, considering the buffs as well to those initial levels on the attack, on the poison attack, can make it hard for that melee sort of core to match up. And you already see that showing in the CS board a bit. 11-5 for a Viper, slightly behind here for a Beastmaster. And that's always a bit of good news there for SAG as you get that initial farm, you're slowing down the Beastmaster's initial timings, and you're trying to minimize the impact of that early bottle as well. Like you manage to secure your rune, you get a good time, and just, you know, lane dominate as you'd want to on the Viper.
That he is. So we just saw the water rune spawn up as well. 7E able to take the one at the top rune spot, and D-Stone's kind of just left in the dust now with an empty bottle. It's not going to feel very nice at all. It's very limited to what he can do. I mean, he's just so poor in the Beastmaster. He can't even get his boots up yet. No braces either. It looks like he might actually go to start jungling. In fact, he's going to stack up the small camp to try and catch up. XCJ's here now, however. They've been playing around with Felix Schauber. XCJ going to try and run, but a nice cookie setup. Felix gets the scatter blast off, and maybe XCJ may have just given D-Stones a very important gift. As he was struggling a lot, but that first blood gold going to help him catch up quite a lot.
And he was trying to grab that bounty at the 3-minute mark, and it's one of those things again. With the map changes, with the bounty changes, there's so many objectives or mini objectives to sort of contest that you kind of have to throw your bodies out to support. A lot of talk whether or not it's worthwhile. They tried to slow down D-Stones with that rotation, doesn't pay off, and D-Stones with that small kill, he's got a lot more control there. He gets topped up in his bottle as well, so he can hold that lane against the Viper a little bit more as the levels are stacking in there as well.
Still going very well right here for God King. Son Goku unable to do too much up against the Jug. Meanwhile, to the right side, or rather left, Super going up against SRF. They're going to fight over the water rune, but D-Stones really wants it, and now they can maybe just turn right back around in this line. The briefcase obviously doing a lot of damage, and now the access to fly in. And Super should be able to at least get the kill, but no, he saves it for D-Stones. Very disciplined play there from Super to make sure D-Stones does get the kill. And again, John, that's his second kill of the game now. After such a terrible lane, D-Stones is really starting to catch up.
Yeah, and he's got really smooth movement on the map. Straight into a stacked camp, he can clear out with one boar and his Axis. So the flash farm potential there for the Beastmaster is pretty darn good. Again, emphasis on the Axis means you get that initial farm in the jungle a lot faster, and this is something that SAG's not really controlling well. They don't have deep jungle wards. They can't contest that movement. You're getting a free lane for the Viper, sure, but he wants to bully that hero. If it's a free lane, it's not necessarily what you want with a hero there.
I certainly agree with you on that. Top lane, a bit of an engagement here onto Felix Schauber. Icarus Dive going to slow him down. Felix still trying to run. Nice God's Rebuke going to keep him alive, and now they're going to turn right back around onto the Phoenix, and Felix, he might just survive as they do get XCJ. And RNG, I mean, they've had the worst circumstances, but they're 3-0 right now in terms of kill score. And every single time that SAG want to try and capitalize, it just ends up working out the way of RNG anyway.
Yeah, they've got to be really careful about the damage output and control SAG has on RNG has on hand. They can punish you misstepping on the Phoenix. They can really start to build up on this Beastmaster with every rotation as well. You can see the clump up mid. They want to kind of bully out, get that tower fast because it's been freed up. They want to enable the Viper to walk around to different lanes once that mid-tier one's gone, so they just want to get more value from that, but the rotations just come in and D-Stones can clear out the wave with his Axis, no problem.
Yeah, and on top of that, of course, you've got Super on the Elder Titan, who's going to make it basically impossible for you to get this push going with the Astral Spirit and Echo Stomp, and he'll just walk away now. But I might add, John, I do find it rather ironic that, you know, a Beastmaster of all things is being pushed in this patch. But it does feel kind of nice to see after all those lost pubs to these damn zoo heroes. Feels good to see them suffering a little bit.
You talk like you don't enjoy the Zoo, mate. I know you're a Lycan picker and an Enigma picker, so I don't know what you're crying about, Mike. You're the one being hurt by the lack of Necronomicon.
That is kind of true, John. I'm not much of a core player anymore, though, so I don't care anymore about the Necro book. They can take it away from me, it's fine. Still IDC top lane. I mean, in terms of farm, John, when you compare the junk, you can compare the PL, it's God King's just getting ahead. And that's never a good sign if you are SAG.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, it comes down to the PL versus Mars lane, right? Like, PL has ways of playing around the God's Rebuke and the Spear, but that requires investment in Doppelganger. And you see IDC did go for Phantom Rush instead, so he just wants to prioritize gap closing, clearing out the creeps, but that does mean that he's very vulnerable when Flyboy wants to throw his combo out, and just the damage output and the tankiness of Amaris, especially when left alone, means that it's a hard lane for the PL to really just find any sort of farm there.
That it is. You can see it in his net worth, just trailing behind by about 500 gold. Not going to feel too nice. Even the junk, it still feels very powerful in the patch, at least for now. Any changes that were made just didn't really seem to affect the jug too much. As what have you spotted out, John? What are you
D-Stones is
laughing at?
queuing up the Ags. He's going for it. And he's not being stopped. Like, this is a free farm Beastmaster for the most part. He's not #1 in net worth, but he's still getting a lot more considering that he was laning against a Viper, and the gap between him and the Viper is just about 700. So yeah, he sacrifices lane. He's not losing it to the Viper. The Viper gets a free lane, but he's not bullying out the Beastmaster. So these conditions for RNG are quite favorable. And 3-0, less than 1k lead, still very close for SAG, but they've been all over the map, and that's starting to hurt them a bit as they're not being as efficient as RNG is kind of allowed to be here.
You just saw another bit of a failed rotation there from SAG down to the bot lane. Just not really working out for them, as the SRF stun was missed. Or rather 70 did make the rotation, but now he's going to go into the mid lane again on the Viper. It's very clever play from RNG, right? If you can't beat the Viper, just don't lane against it. And it kind of works out that way instead. This top lane, there might be a bit of a group up now as D-Stones has made the rotation up. Looks like he's actually just going to go into the triangle. Oh, maybe not. He'll turn around and let Felix stack it up instead. But I suppose for D-Stones, you are just trying to rush Ags. So as long as you're farming, it's fine. As bot lane, Bot King, he'll just spin away. But that is a huge Ancient stack.
Oh yeah, and they can clear it really fast with a Tidehunter. You can see Son Goku trying to get that gold injection. He's rushing the Blink here into the pipe, so he wants to have that durability against the magic damage RNG has, and they have a lot of magic damage. Even just an early pipe can sort of mitigate some of the impact of that early Ags we're expecting from the Beast. So it's a preemptive measure here from Son Goku. Not only that, but they're also reducing the spin damage of the Jug, the magic damage of the Mars, and the Snapfire. So it's a really good value rush here for Son Goku once he gets to pick that up. But the Blink, of course, will enable him to join these fights. We haven't seen a Ravage yet from SHE. In fact, we haven't seen them really hit any sort of big team fights, and that's one thing with their lineup as well. They're going to want level 6 on Lion. They're going to want level 6 on their Phoenix. And that means you need to wait for these supports to catch up in EXP before looking for some of these pickoffs that you'd want in this lineup.
Regen Rune taken by SRF. Super going to be targeted now as the Earth Spike does come in, and Son Goku going to move in as well with the Viper Strike. Kisses. But there's your Omni Slash being committed with the Mortimer's Kisses and God King. He'll be happy about that. He loses support ET, but he gets a mid Viper for himself. You can't complain if you're God King.
And you can still transition to an objective really fast. They're still hunting though. Not quite satisfied, but it's going to be hard to lock in Phoenix. Still looking at that mid-tier 1. Not an objective SHE will want to give out, so they're going to have to force something here.
Son Goku, you have the Ravage, but he hasn't really got much mana for it. He does have the stick charges if he needs to pop it. Son Goku just trying to front line. Looks like RNG. They'll be happy with just forcing the rotations into that mid lane. It's all they really wanted. They understand they haven't got the greatest pushing lineup right now, so just getting that chip damage and forcing the pressure does feel quite nice for them. As SAG, they've smoked up now. They're going to try and maybe invade that Radiant Triangle and find D-Stones. They do it, however. Get to the high ground. D-Stone's in an unfortunate position, but he still has time to run. He's going to try. Sunray is there with the Icarus Dive, but it is not going to be enough.
Ooh, they find a stacks though. That's a lot of gold going away to SAG. Managed to intercept that massive stack, so they at least slow down the economy of D-Stones. And while they get all that movement off, they've bought a lot of space for their PL. So you can see our PL now #2 net worth, just lagging behind slightly from Flyboy's Mars. That's a lot of recovery considering his lane was a lot slower compared to our Jug. So SAG are actually getting a bit more from these map movements. Sure, they're not quite finding objectives. They lost their top tier 1. but your PL's getting to farm up. You're sort of stalling out the Beastmaster, and you can see our Beastmaster, D-Stones, is actually stuck at the bottom of all these cores. So despite that really good start avoiding the Viper, his flash farm, even in the jungle, just hasn't shaped up the way you'd want it to here.
Son Goku just continues to pump fake Ravage. God King won't fall for it. Mid lane is 7E.
Oh,
He's stunned up. Mortimus, it's a lot of damage out with the Astral Spirit. It's not going to be quite enough, but that's a fun little combination there with the Elder Titan. Having that aura with the Astral Spirit into the Mortimus Kisses, removing so much of that magic resist, and it does hurt once it flies in.
yeah, it definitely does. That's one thing SAG sort of lacks as well. They don't have a natural way to stop the kisses. So as long as your positioning's on point, which it has been for our Snapfire in a couple of engagements, you're going to get full duration kisses out. You have a lot of damage to fly through. There is going to be mitigating factors from SAG soon. Our Tidehunter is very close to the full pipe, so you will be able to at least drop some of that damage down and allow your team to live a lot longer. We'll just have to see if that will allow them to take some of these fights down the line. We talked about Free Farm coming out. God King is allowed to just stay on that Jug as mentioned, but he's only a part away from his Battle Fury.
Lane, they got the arena down. 7E, he's been caught out. SRF, he's around, but the Omni Slash going to bounce over to the Lion. Now the spin. They should at least get SRF though. No, he'll spin TP away. The failed Omni Slash. They don't want to risk dying, but look at that mid lane. Immediate pressure there by RNG, and SAG, they are forced to rotate once again to respond to this. This is not what they want to be doing, but RNG is just forcing it every time. Of course, SAG know they can't really afford to lose that mid tier 1 tower, as it's just going to open up too much of the dire side.
Yeah, they're being really cautious, responding to that aggression for RNG. So both teams are keeping relatively good check on each other. You have to watch the fact that the Jug does have the Battle Fury up. Like, the PL can still jump camp to camp with Phantom Rush quite nicely, but Battle Fury Jug just means these camps are cleared out fast. However, he is sapping away from D-Stone. So you give the jungle now to your Juggernaut, your Beastmaster sort of taking the back seat. He is only one part away from Ags, so it's not too bad. Like, the timing's still lining up there for D-Stones, and we'll have to see what he intends to do with that. Like, surely the Roche is going to be something they're all going to be eyeing, and SCG's kind of set for that. They're the ones pressuring that mid-tier 1 now.
They are. SCG doing a great job of it too. Son Goku just frontlining there for 7E and SRF.
Radiant's middle tower has fallen.
T1, very nice. SAG now can try and invade the Radiant side. Of course, they still haven't gotten the bot T1, but it won't matter. They'll go right into the triangle. However, here come the TPs, RNG. They want to try and fight this one out as they go in with the arena and the spear right onto the tide. But Son Goku, he's going to be alright. At least for now, the Hood of Defiance. But here comes God King with a nice cookie and a scooter set up. The Raw flies out as well. SRF, he's quite low on the line and he is set to die to the spin, or maybe not. The Ravage timing. Oh, that is a perfect Ravage from Son Goku. Flyby still going to get the spear off in time, so Son Goku is not quite out, or maybe he is. He gets the high ground now. D-Stones will continue chasing him up. Wild Axes are there, the Astral Spirit, Son Goku, he just keeps avoiding them. Onto the next high ground, into the triangle. They'll jump up, the Earth Spike is there. Son Goku will finally die. He will finally die in that tide, but it took such a long time. And all that time was time that the PL was farming. Now you have the Fusel Blade up on IDC.
Yeah, this is going to allow RPL to join these fights if he wants to. He has the Yasha up as well. Still probably going to wait for the SNY to get that additional durability, that additional stat resist to stand in the front, have the HP to man up and force these fights. But you can see the difference just the Hood of Defiance makes in the fight. It's so hard to melt him. They threw pretty much all their big spells at him and still couldn't do it. Still some pretty good push out. They take the tier 1 and they're lining up for IDC.
He just takes the stomp. He allows them to set up like that into the cookie and the scatter blast, and he just gets destroyed. I'm kind of shocked he just stood there and took the Astral Spirit.
Yeah, that was really confident coming out from
Goku now.
Arena.
Bot lane, Arena going to be there. They don't have too much stun, but Son Goku doesn't have any stun. He's gone. Into 7E and SRF now. Behind their tier 2s, they should remain safe. But you got so much if you are RNG, and
D-Stone.
Last second spin, just in case. Well, what is it, John? You found D-Stones again.
You see these
What's...
ridiculous axes? Are you seeing how dumb this is? No cooldown. Look, toss out, it's back. Toss again. Just clear everything. He can do it. He's got the Ags. They're going to be eyeing Roche with the mid-tier one, with the top-tier one gone.
Oh,
a lot of space for RNG to get it as well. And, of course, getting topped up for a region always feels great when you have a 0 cooldown spell on hand. Just outstanding.
The best part is as well, John, he's got a Fairy's Trinket, so it amps the spell damage,
goodness.
plus he gets that lowered cooldown and the mana reduction. It's just ridiculous. IDC mid lane this time is going to doppel away from the Astral Spirit.
Dire's top tower is under attack.
So RNG, I mean, with those kills that did occur in the last team fight, God King, he got back on top of the net worth board. He's about to finish his SNY up on the jug. You start to get a little bit concerned about SAG again. Because right now they're only sitting 8-1. And it is a 5k net worth lead still there for RNG. But maybe this is the time to go, John. Son Goku, he's got the blink up now. SAG, I expect to smoke very soon. They also have SRF's blink on the line. Massive power spikes here for SAG, but it's a matter of whether they can make it work.
Yeah, and again, they've got to be cautious about that Roche. There's a smoke here as well from RNG. They're lined up near that Roche area, near that top jungle. They're going to be eyeing maybe a shove on that top tier 2 first and transition that to the Roshan. And again, you got to remember, with the Ags on Beastmaster, the panel pointed this out, but it just melts if you allow him to get that space out on the Roshan for quite some time.
That it does. And all it takes is a smoke, John, if you don't want to take any damage. As you can see, complete balance here for D-Stones. You see a very balanced ability right now, and here's the big smoke up though. SAG, they want to try and punish this. You want that Blink Ravage immediately. They haven't seen the Blink up yet on the Tide. SAG, not going to find the opportunity as RNG being very smart and backing off at the right time, sensing that something is awry. No, all lanes are pushed out right now. I suppose just everyone missing off the map is scary enough for RNG, and perhaps they've just kind of calculated the timing of those blinks. And they're going to be fine. The smoke will lead to nothing.
Yeah, I mean, RNG is not under pressure to really do much. They were smoked up earlier, but they don't really lose much by not finding kills. The pressure is really on SAG. They want to use Ravage. They want to use that Blink Hex Finger combo they have on hand, and they need to start kind of slowing down what RNG has, because there's a 6k lead for RNG at 19 minutes in. They're flash farming jungle a lot better with Battle Fury on a Juggernaut than, say, the SNY and Diffusal on a Phantom Lancer. It just doesn't measure up the same way for the PL in playing this farm game, and you're always going to be a bit at a slight disadvantage when you allow this slower pace to come out for the heroes you have on RNG. So SAG, they need to find an angle somehow. They don't have the best offensive wards, and they only really have control over their triangle right now in terms of vision, so they're sort of blind to get that movement out, and it just makes it harder to approach the side of RNG. It makes it harder to find an angle for a good Ravage. It makes it hard to find the key heroes you want to just finger down instantly as well.
Here's the hard question though, John. Like, both these teams seem very satisfied just farming up and going into the later stages of the game. Do you favor the PL or do you favor the Jug?
It's down the line, I'd say it's a bit back and forth. Like, the PL, again, can dodge out the Omni Slash quite nicely. You do get the Swift Slash for the Jug to kind of play around with that. We are talking, like, really late load. Like, the PL needs a heart to be up to really be durable.
Top lane. Oh, he hexed the neutral camp instead. Still, they'll go after Flyby, but there's your spear out from Flyby, and again, they are going to be able to run away. They even found the top tier 2 tower. Just nothing working for SAG. And you can't blame SRF for that missed hex. The spin just came out way too quick from God King. And he just ended up hexing a neutral camp instead, which it's unfortunate, but they're trying. Trying their absolute best to just get this junk dead. In fact, they're going to smoke up again here, SAG. They're still trying to get this Blink Ravage going.
It's just difficult. They need some offensive wards somewhere. All their wards are just on their side of the map, so they're going in blind every single time, and it just, again, makes it very hard to find those angles. They are looking bot, and they could try to go for D-Stones here. They know he was around that area. Could be a pretty potent pick-off if they do manage to find that angle, but he's already kind of protected and TPing home.
He's got a BOTs up, John, the Boots of Travel. He's basically Tinker now with these wild axes. No rearm necessary, just, you know, maybe a bit of a longer cooldown on the TP, but who cares about that? And now here comes the Roshan. He won't buy a smoke for this, but there's no need for a smoke for D-Stones, because he's got Flyby to tank all the damage. This poor Roshan is just going to get annihilated. Just no chance as the damage amp keeps stacking for some reason. Mr. Ice Frog, if you're listening. He just taken my God King and now Son Goku. He doesn't want to commit the Ravage like this if he in fact he has no mana for it. They'll go straight on the Viper. 7E, he is set to die and does go down. Flyby still surviving meanwhile. The Ravage in the backlines did nothing as God King will just find IDC. He's trying on the PL to be able to fight back and doing a great job of it, but Son Goku is not going to be able to do the same. SAG once again just can't find the opening.
No, they can't get the combo of Ravage Egg. Like, that's what you're looking for with this lineup. You need Ravage Egg to come out. You want control in tight spots. They were a bit too late to go into the Roche. They had an inkling that it was happening. Again, a lack of vision is hurting SAG massively here.
Here we go, IDC gonna topple away immediately away from that Astral Spirit. You've got to give big props to Super here on this ET. Just so effective at holding SAG back every single time. Just scouting out for his team. As they get the tier 2 mid tower very easily, it seems. In fact, they're just going to leave it. They are literally just going to leave it there on low HP. As there are TPs coming in, Son Goku going to move into Felix Xiaoba. But you've got no Ravage. He can't really stop anyone. So he's just chasing them down and just waving his hands menacingly, just hoping they'll get a bit upset, I guess. But apart from that, there's not really much going on here for this tie.
Yeah, I mean, SAG are in such a bad spot. I didn't even notice. It's 10-1 at 24 minutes.
Yeah.
Only one kill for SAG. Like, they've got a lion with finger. They've got Ravage Egg that just hasn't been able to come out. And props to RNG, they're just spacing themselves out brilliantly. They're working the map well. They're the ones with the offensive wards here. They're making it hard for SAG to find any opportunity to force a fight. And, you know, they're still holding on to their tier 2s, at least in mid and bot. Or although I say mid, it's just hang by tread. There's still some space for SAG to farm up. It's starting to feel like it's becoming the PL. And God King just chops through the tier 2 tower anyway. So map is completely shrinking here for SAG, and with the Aegis up, they can look to high ground if they wanted to.
All right, onto SRF, the spear, it will not connect, but the cookie will also miss. Nice start, at least for SAG, but now the Raw's out. 7E, he's been caught. Oh boy. They're onto the tier 3 tower now. Son Goku moves in, but he didn't have Ravage yet. It was 3 seconds away, and he is set to die. He does have buyback, but I don't really think they want to commit it like this. Even if they do, they might kind of force themselves to GG out. Because I don't think they can really win a team fight.
No.
They'll commit. Earthspike is there onto 3 heroes for God King. He's going to avoid everything. With the spin timing again, as Son Goku will move in, but his blink has been cancelled by the boar. They finally take it out, but it might just be too late. He's got the blink up now, but he doesn't have the vision. That one wild boar from D-Stones just making it so they can't counter-initiate, and now the buybacks are just wasted.
Yeah, it's just really clean from RNG, preventing any sort of counterplay here from SAG, and again, it's starting to become the PL story. IDC needs to just build up in the PL, try to make some space for himself, use that space to farm up. He's queuing up the heart, so you're reaching that point where perhaps your PL is going to be too tanky to burst down in Omni Slash and in the combinations you have in RNG. And that is pretty much a saving grace here for SAG. They still have really good high ground if they get Ravage Egg off, but we've just seen it time and time and again. RNG makes it near impossible to find the right time, to find the right angles, and I think for SAG's part, like, we have to see some more patience here, especially from our Tide. Like, every now and again, we've seen Son Goku toss out a Ravage before dying, or in a fight that SAG can't really clean up afterwards. He needs to just really be patient, wait for that perfect opportunity. Like, if he had a Ravage earlier in that high ground defense, they would have been able to clean up. There was a really good impale coming through from SRF, but again, the timings just didn't line up there for SAG.
Quite ironic that you call it Impale, John. It is Earth Spike, just so you're aware. Noticed a lot of casters using the word Impale for Lion's Earth
Radiant's
Spike.
bottom tower
Very,
is
very
under
lazy
attack.
stuff. You should know very well, John. You're a Lion spammer. So
Yeah, I slipped up
please
now.
do not ever say Impale again.
Hey, I was getting it right last time, you know. I can't mouse over it right now, Mike. Give me a break.
SAG, they're going to smoke up. They've got the Blink Ravage. They see God King, but his reaction times have been pretty intense this game, as now the smoke is broken, but they do get the Hex out. Still, Arena down, but the Ravage is there, into the egg. Got burst down God King, and now they can take the team fight. Flyby, he's just going to try and TP out of there immediately, and does. And now the Stomp is going to hold them back. Still a great team fight, though. SAG, they lose the support line, but they get the carry Jug on the other side. And that's all they really wanted anyway.
Yeah, that's really great timing from SAG as well. The Aegis, I believe, just expired a few seconds before that, or right as that fight broke out. So they found a big kill in the Jug. They managed to get some space out. And you can see, again, there is power here for SAG if they land their combo. They just need to land that. And once they do have some semblance of control, they can get that burst damage off and start to apply some damage out with their PL. Like, the heart is almost up here for IDC, so you're reaching that point where the PL is going to be too hard to burst down for the Jug. A lot of pressure is on now and everyone else to get the control off, to isolate the real PL out from the illusions and try to deal with him that way. I think you're really going to have to see some lined up cookies here, and stomps out from Super, so there's pressure on the snap for Felix to manage to isolate the PL and get the follow-up going, clean up. But the game is starting to pull a bit later than you'd want here for RNG. The PL is still keeping up here with God King. Like, you're seeing IDC still within 100 gold of a Jug. So it's a really good point for SAG. They haven't lost racks despite losing a tier 3. So they still have some really decent shove potential in their lanes as well.
Arena is there, XCJ, the only one caught, and he is going to die. I think that there was an exclamation mark there on the Phoenix for some reason. Won't really matter too much, I guess. They did get the kill. No denies here. Now into the outpost. In the meantime, though, IDC has gotten the Heart of Tarrasque now, so he's a tanky boy. And it looks like he's going for the Shards and Octarine build-up. Which, by the way, John, I know you and I always talk crap about this build. But I think it's viable now. I actually believe it's quite viable in the pro meta. And it's a really nice way of defending high ground, I've got to tell you. I played into this in a pub, and it was disgusting. Like, you can't ever push. You just can't.
Yeah, I mean, it did just get buffed as well. Like, the short damage was upped from 30% to 50%, so I think now it's in a pretty good spot. And as you mentioned, you can stall.
They've got Son Goku in that arena. He's got no way out either. He's just going to die. SAG don't really want a piece of RNG at the moment. RNG, they might just go back into that mid lane, knowing it's a dieback on the Tide. No, they're actually going to back out.
Could have been an opportunity with no buyback on Tide. Of course, that means no Ravage Egg combination for the next fight. So it could have simplified the process in taking racks, and they could still melt racks really fast. But they're just paying some respect to how much SAG has on hand. Like, you can see just how much work IDC's illusions do. Like, he tosses out the lance, and it bounces around, and suddenly your mana's cut by a quarter or so. And in a prolonged fight, you're just going to be always low on mana if you're not careful up against IDC. So they're respecting the PL's power. That does also mean that they're giving the PL space to finish this build-up. And again, once that Octarine's up, it could work in this game. Like, it's looking pretty good for IDC. He already has Heart. He didn't rush it. I think that's the key thing. IDC did not rush Octarine, and as a, again, 4th, 5th item pickup, it's not something I mind too much. It does make sense.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, John, with the Shards, you get plus 50% damage on the illusion that spawns. Those illusions hit really hard after a while, especially going into this late game. I'm very curious to see whether the Shards Aether Lens into Octarine is going to be able to pay off. For now, both teams just kind of avoiding each other, just sitting back and relaxing for a bit, getting some more farm in. Of course, God King does want the Aghanim Scepter himself before he gets any more involved in this game, but why not just go take a free Roshan, which is exactly what they intend to do, RNG. In SAG, they've grouped up, but they're not going to make it in time. There's just no way.
Yeah, it's just not quick enough. They still lack vision around the pit. It's still an issue of information here for SAG. They just can't react in a timely manner up against moves of RNG. They could maybe punish if RNG gets a bit too complacent here up in the front, but they're not going to be able to, again, apply pressure with smoke, and they're just going to have to sit back, get IDC that farm up. I think at this point, you're really just waiting for the Octarine build up on the PL. You have to worry about RNG getting more items up on themselves as well. You see the Shivas being built up here by our Beastmaster, and once that's up, it makes it a bit easier to isolate out the illusions without AoE damage. Of course, you mitigate the heals out, and of course, you test your BKBs.
Testing his BKB, making sure it works. Doesn't really need a BKB anyway, John. He can just throw axes without a BKB. I'm sure he'll be just fine. By the way, always nice to see he got a Psychic Headband, so more cast range on those axes. Plus he has a free 4-star for himself. Very nice. Not really a 4-star, but you get my point. Kind of works the same way.
Yeah, and I love this coming out from RNG. They're smoked up behind their jug. They're going to be circling around here.
Well, here we go. They're going to initiate straight off the bat with the Viper Strike onto Flyby, but he's going to be just fine. The Earth Spike, however, does land the God King with the finger, but it will not be enough. They will go straight onto Son Goku. There will be no Ravage to fly out this team fight, as God King now is going to try and find another target. They'll go onto 7E. They'll find the Viper. They are making it look very easy, John. D-Stones, he still has the Roar up. There was just no need to throw it out.
No, and now they're going to be able to find this tier 2 as well, start sieging the high ground once more. Without the Viper and without the Tide, it's a lot simpler. So they still have the Aegis as well. They've got Cheese on hand. So many protections for their chorus and taking these fights. And SAG just need to find
found the
angle.
peel. IDC, he's been caught out. The stop is there in time. They're just going to hold him for a little bit into the Earth Splitter, but he will topple away. Instead, they got the egg from XCJ, and they get the peel. And there is a swift slash out. In fact, that was an Omni. Just onto SRF, and that's it. They call the GG. They've seen enough. And RNG, the panel did predict that they would take out this game 1. They took it out in a very decisive fashion. I mean, it didn't even feel close, John. But of course, with that, we are going to head back to that panel and see what they have to say after this game 1.
I think Juggernaut said it all right there. It was 20-2. Good God, that was a stop. We were all leaning RNG. I don't think we were leaning them that heavily, but damn it all, if